Okay, all right.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are joining us from another time zone, I'll say good morning, good evening, good whatever period you are at. Today, we have another interesting session, and our guest presenter is Ibrahim Ogunbiyi. He's going to be presenting to us on how to communicate data insights effectively. So it's a bit of a soft skill session we'll be having, but I've told him I'm going to ask him so many questions that will bring a lot more in diverse angles to what he wants to share. So please also feel free to come up with your own questions. But he's going to present first before we ask him questions. So about our speaker, is a data analyst and advocating MLOps, machine learning ops at Comet, and an aspiring consultant. He's going to take us through how to communicate data insights effectively, tailoring analysis to communicate right insights. After that, we are going to have the question and answer. He's a very skilled data analyst who has expertise in Python, SQL. He also enjoys technical writing. So I'm going to post all this in the chat box so that you get to also connect with him and especially his LinkedIn so that you get to also learn as he posts and share other things. So at this juncture, I'm going to hand over to him. Just to mention that the session is also brought to you by UrBizEdge, and we are a training company, and this is part of how we help our participants to keep learning. So there are many things we do beyond the training to ensure that our participants understand and make use of what they are learning. So if you need any training where you want to not just be trained and left on your own, but be continuously helped to understand and make use of what you are learning, we can be one of your best options because that's how we take learning. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to our special guest, Ibrahim. So, Mr. Ibrahim, the stage is yours. Sorry, I wanted to mute myself. I mistakenly muted you. Sorry. Can you kindly unmute yourself? Mr. Ibrahim.
Okay, I've done that right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my screen as well?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, yes. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone, wherever you are joining us from. So my name is Ibrahim Ogunbiyi. So today I'll be talking about how to communicate data insight effectively. Because communicating data insight, it's one of the core things, I must say, if not technical, is a soft skill that you should know as a data analyst, as a data scientist, because communicating insights will help stakeholders actually make informed decision and then take the right action. So a little bit about myself. So like Mr. Mike has rightly said, I'm a data analyst. So I also serve as an MLOps advocate at Comet. When I write technical articles to educate folks on how to make use of Comet. So before I get into like data analytics, I've also worked as in the home automation space for a startup. So so we've said, okay, the title of what we want to talk about is how to communicate data insight effectively. So what does communicating data insight actually means? So it means you're presenting your information or insight in a concise, clear, and engaging manner in which your user can be, or your audience can easily understand what you're trying to pass across. So it means like you are making use of like appropriate visualizations, narrative, and other techniques that you can use to make sure that your audience, people that you are communicating this thing to, can relate to what you are trying to pass across. Now, data insights actually is built upon three major things, which include the first one being the data itself, the second one being the visualization, and the third one being the narrative. So now let's go into talking about each of these categories of which data insight is built upon. So now the first one being data. As we all know now, we know that data is the foundation upon which all these insights are built. Without data, there's no way you can find insight. So you want to make sure that all these data that you are using, they are properly managed and maintained. And as like the adage says, it says garbage in, garbage out. If the data you are using is not properly maintained, it's not consistent. Let's say you are feeling missing values, you are not feeling it appropriately. The insights that you are generating, that you're going to generate from the data, will be like representative of what you have already. So that means if you have inconsistent data, your insight will be wrong conclusion. You'll be coming into deriving wrong insight due to the fact that the data is not accurate and all that. So due to that, you have to make sure that firstly your data is accurate, it is reliable, and it is consistent. Now, let's go into like talking about the tips in which you can use to like work with your data. We've known there are like exhaustive list of tips in which you can use to work with your data. I just like came into like three of them. The first thing is you want to make sure that the data you are using uh, that you want to use to generate insight and communicate insight are free of errors. So you want to make sure that any errors, because real life data will always contain errors, right? Now you want to make sure that any errors that are included or that are present in that data set are properly identified and addressed. So it will be errors in terms of like maybe there are some cases whereby the observation in the data set, like let's say now for instance a string, some are having capital letters and then some are having lowercase letters. So you want to make sure that like everything is consistent. You want to make sure that there's no error in the data set. Another thing again is in terms of like missing values. So you want to make sure that you are dealing with missing values in your data set appropriately and accordingly. Now, let's say now, for instance, you have a column that has like, you find out that when you were plotting the visualization of that column, so that like the observation in the column was skewed. So for you to fill the missing value for that particular column, you need to know that okay, the measure that you're going to use is you're going to fill with the median value. Since like mean, if you want to fill with the average is always affected of all these kind of extreme values and all that. So another thing again is you want to make sure that you are mindful of outliers as it has significant impact on analysis. You want to deal with it using expertise knowledge. So this is very very core. Back in those days is when you just feel okay when you have like outliers. Outliers are like simply means extreme values in your data set. Then you feel like okay, let me cut out those outliers, let me drop it. You shouldn't just think of that at first. You need to be sure and have expertise knowledge of why all these extreme values are present in the data set. One of them, it could be that they result in errors. Like let's say now, for instance, you are gathering information from the sensor, so maybe the sensor is malfunctioning. But all some could be like they are pointing you to another kind of direction. And let's say now, for instance, it could be that you have like some new customers in your company that like they are purchasing way less than other average people. So you need to firstly understand why all these outliers are present. So with that, using the expertise knowledge, you'll be able to like address the occurrence of the outliers in the data set. Now let's move to like the second part of which we said data insight is built upon. We said the first one is the data, right? So the second one is like the visual. Now, visuals are powerful tools for like communicating data insight. So they are the key elements that are used to like attract the attention of an audience. So now let's say now for instance, visual allows complex data and ideas to be more accessible to users. There's a popular idea that they say like humans are bad with numbers, especially large numbers, which is true. You know, once we see like a number like this, let's say now you have like you are displaying a number, it could be very, very kind of hard for like a human brain to kind of quantify how big this number is. So for that, you want to make sure that you are communicating your insights using visualization. Because now let's now for instance, you have a visualization that you are displaying, right? The first thing the human brain will get connected to is those graphics. They don't want to know, their brain will be connected to graphics and trying to find, okay, where can I see insights? Where can I find patterns in the data set? So you want to make sure that you are making use of effective visualization to communicate your data insight. And let's see like a scenario, right? Like this now. So these two what's it called? We have at the left hand side, we have a table, right, which contains like the numbers of job posting over a year. And on the right hand side, we have a visualization that is the representation of this table. Firstly, seeing this table, it's kind of really hard to like, okay, discover this kind of insight. But in terms of visualization, our brain can quickly pick that, oh, I think there's like an increase in the number of job posting over the years. So that's the essence of like using visualization. Visualization will be able to like help your audience understand what you want to pass across. Now let's talk about like the tips for like building excellent visualization. So we'll talk about some of these things. We'll see it in the later in the slide. So the first thing is when you are building visualization, you want to make sure that less is better. So, humans, we love things that are really, really simple, not things that are too complex. So you want to make sure that you are making use of appropriate colors. You are not using all these kind of 3D effects, labels. Like you want to make sure that you are consistent and you don't want to like bombard your your audience with different kind of visualization, different kind of colors. Remember that you are designing, you are showing this visualization to some set of people, not you actually, not you actually. So when you are building your visualization, you want to make sure you are keeping all those people in mind, not yourself. So another thing again is like in terms of visualization, for communicating data insights effectively, you want to make sure that you are using appropriate scale. Now, let's say now, for instance, we have tools like Power BI, right? That automatically generates, the axis and labels the scale of the axis for you. So you must make sure you cross check and check truly that is this scale that this Power BI is generating, are they really the scale that you need? Because if these scale are wrong, you'll be communicating an insight that is actually wrong. So you want to make sure that you are really concerned about using appropriate skill for your visualization. Another thing again is you want to make sure that you are using appropriate visuals, so that there are like different kind of visualization that can be used to achieve a particular task. But as a data analyst or a data scientist, you need to know which visualization will be appropriate for that particular scenario that you want to do, for that type of insight that you want to communicate. So you want to make sure that you are using the appropriate visualization that will help you for that particular use case. Another thing again is like um, when you want to communicate a particular insight to a user, right? You want to make sure that like you are using you are highlighting the important part of that your visualization that you want to direct your audience attention to. So let's say now we'll see like a scenario, we'll see like a use case of what I'm talking about. So you want to make sure that like the place that you want your audience attention to be directed to, you have to like highlight it on the visualization. Another thing is like you want to make use of consistent formatting. Don't make use of like different kind of context that will make the visualization kind of glaring, not really understandable to like the user, to the audience. And as well, you want to make sure that you are labeling your axis and the titles, and as well, you want to make sure that you are making your visuals, if possible, like making it interactive. Like always think of creating visuals that are interactive that user can easily over on top it, and it will generate they'll find like insight. Like let's say now for instance in Python we have libraries such as Plotly that user can over on top it, and it will bring out like the figures for that particular visualization. Now let's show like this is like a scenario of what I'm talking about. Like I said the first thing is when you are building visualization, you want to make sure that less is better. You want to know the kind of colors that you are using. As we can see, this kind of visualization like this now. Okay, this is a visualization that is showing the percentage of CO2, carbon monoxide emission across different kind of country. But some people might think, okay, this visualization, there's nothing wrong with it. So far, it's communicating the insight. But there are ethics and rules in building visualization. To you, this might not be actually what's it called? I not be wrong, but to other people, firstly they are, what their eyes will be attracted to is like trying to find, okay, which color should I look at to, which color, before even thinking of the next thing they want to, the next pattern they want to derive. So this kind of visualization, as we are seeing now, it's a very bad visualization because like there's a lot of colors here. So for a user to focus on what visualization, what part to like look at, it will be kind of difficult. So now this is like the correct visualization. So now this color is consistent across the visualization. So the next thing that the user will want to like focus on is, okay, saying, okay, which bar in the visualization is more top. Okay, we can see, okay, the user will say, okay, wow, as from this visualization, we can see that like the order has like the highest number of emission followed by China. So it's very, very easy for like the user's attention to be quickly focused on seeing, okay, China has like the second highest CO2 emission. So that's why I'm saying, like, when you want to build your visualization, you want to make sure that you are using less color. Don't just build like, let's say now, for instance, you are building visualization on Python. You are not making use of some CMap or some color palette. So there are some cases where that color palette will work, but know the kind of colors if what you are doing does not require color palette, don't make use of it in the essence of saying you want to like design your visualization very well. So now let's see this kind of visualization now. If you see this kind of visualization, firstly, one thing our mind will be attracted to is like, wow, there's like a trend in terms of like as like the group is increasing, right? So like the what's it called? The numbers of, let me say now, for instance, let's say now this is like the numbers of sales, right? So you might think, okay, as the group is increasing, like in group A, group B, like there's an increase in what's it called, in the numbers of sales across this group. But this visualization is not actually correct. Why is that? Because it's the scale. If you can look at the scale of this visualization, we can see that it's starting at 9,200. So, one thing someone might think of is like, wow, it seems group E has the highest number of sales across the group. But this visualization is not correct. So you want to make sure that's what I'm saying. If you want to communicate data inside all these things for the visual, you want to make sure that you are putting it into place. You are taking care of, you are what's taking note of all this kind of thing. So now Power BI, for instance, you start like from the automatic scale will not start at zero. So this kind of visualization is going to be misleading, and your audience will not be able to like, they might think, oh, across the group, I think group E has the highest number of sales. But if you look at this is the correct version of the visualization starting from zero. You can see like there's not really like much of a difference as compared to this, because this is like from this visualization before, you can see that the scale started from 9,100. But when the scale started at zero, you can see like there's kind of a balance between, the numbers of sales across each group. So that's why when you are building all this visualization, you need to be careful, because if the visualization are not correct, you will not be able to like effectively communicate your data inside. So now the next thing is like, let's see this kind of like we said earlier, when you want to highlight some what's it called, when you want to call your audience attention to a particular thing. Now let's say now, for instance, you in your company, you are interested in knowing the numbers of the proportion of CO2 emission across all this country. So now, and you want to focus on China. So with that, you need to like make sure you are using some data visualization elements that will attract user to that particular thing. So now this is like in this visualization now we can see that like China looks odd from other type of visualization. So the users or the audience attention will be focused on this. So that's it. Like let's say you have some cases where you want to highlight important information, you have to make sure that that thing that you want to highlight is different from the other. So now, as we said earlier again, we said when you are communicating visualizations, right, you want to make sure that you are using the appropriate visualization that suits best for the use case you are trying to achieve. Like I said earlier before, I said different kind of visualization can generate different kind of can generate the same result. As we can see from like this slide, you can see two different visualization generating the same results. The first one is like this donut chart on Power BI that shows like the proportion of the count of job across this company industry. You can see that like okay, truly like they've always said, donut chart is used to like show a path to road. Like donut chart is ideal for showing proportion, right? But we can say that like even if it is ideal, but in this kind of scenario, this donut chart is not like the best scenario because it is very very hard for like users audience to quickly understand okay what's like the proportion for staff recruiting and all that. So that's why when you want to communicate that visualization and insight, you need to know the appropriate visualization that will suit your use case. Now, moving on to the last part um, of what that insight is built upon. The third one we said the first one is the data, right? The second one is the visualization. Now the third one is the narrative. So the narrative is like the structure and flow of the story that ties together different elements of your data and information to create like a cohesive and compelling messages in data storytelling. So what narrative actually means is like this is where you want to tell the story of those insights because you've generated insights from visualizations, right? You've generated, okay, you as a data analyst, you've generated those insights. So now you want to like tell the story, you want to communicate those insights to the intended audience. So that is where narrative come into place. Now, these are some of like the tips for like creating compelling narrative. So for firstly, let's say you want to start, okay, you've generated the insight from the visualization, you've created the visualization. Now you want to start like communicating those insights. Firstly, one thing you need to know for you to be able to like communicate the data insight effectively, you need to understand the problem statement because understanding the problem statement and clearly defining it will give you like a direction, a pathway on how you want to communicate those insights. Now, let's say now, for instance, you are working on a project for a company on why customer churn, right? Okay, now you have the idea of what the problem statement is. Okay, you know that the problem statement is you want to identify the root causes of why customer churn. Now, in that kind of scenario, you have the direction already. So all these insights that you want to derive from the visualization, you want to make sure that it is tailored to why the customer churn. That is, all these insights that you want to generate will be like something like a root cause analysis. You know, okay, what is the reasons for customer is churn? So one thing before you can build like a compelling narrative, before you can communicate a data insight effectively, firstly you must know that problem statement. If you don't know the problem statement, you know, there are some cases where say there are some people, cases where people just go on cargo, you not read out the background statement, and then what you just find out is like you just start building different kind of visualization that is not even tailored to what you want to, communicate. So firstly, you want to make sure that you understand the problem statement. And another thing is like you want to make your data relatable by using analogy, anecdote, and real world example. So what this mean actually is, let's say now you've generated those insights. So you want to make sure that the insights are something that your audience can relate to. Now let me take it, for instance, a scenario. Okay, now let's say in 2022, right? The total revenue of Apple then was about like, let me say, approximately 394 billion US dollars. So now, okay, now let's say now, for instance, you are working for a particular project, or you are working on a particular project uh, that is about knowing the revenue of of all these big tech companies. Now, okay, you've identified that the revenue of Apple in 2022 was $394 billion. Now, your user might not really, the audience that you're communicating this insight, they might not really know, okay, you said um, the revenue is $395 billion. They might not really relate to knowing, okay, how big is this thing? So, but if you add something like an analogy or a context, you'll be able to like relate to what you are saying. Now, let's say now, for instance, you now said, okay, to know how big this $394 billion is, when we combine app, let's say now when you combine Twitter, you combine Tesla, you combine Google, you combine Snapchat, the revenue of them will generate that kind of revenue for Apple. So now with that, the audience can relate to, oh wow, they can really now understand how big this $394 billion is. So now the next thing is like you need to follow a clear structure by tailoring your message to only include relevant insights. So we have talked about this before. It's like when you're communicating all this data insights, you want to make sure that you are communicating the relevant insight that is needed. Now let's say now you are talking about why is customer churning. So there are some cases whereby knowing the demographic of those customers might not really needed, because it's not like that's not we are not interested in knowing the demographic, but knowing so but including those kind of relevant insights. Okay, maybe you later found out in your insight that it was due to like operational faults or maybe service faults. That's why customers are churning. Those ones are relevant insights. But you saying it now, you're not like including in your storytelling that when you're communicating, okay, we have like you say, the proportion of user is 29, or like let's say we have this our data set, we have like 50% of users live in Kaduna, stuff like that. All those kind of cases might not really be needed, or maybe you are talking about like the age. But if you see that, like let's say age could be for the factor of why the customers are churning, that could be a relevant insight. But in cases whereby the age is not even part of like what is affecting the user, so there's not really need of saying, okay, we have 60% of customers are below 80 years old, 90% are below above 60 years old. So all those kind of insights are not needed. So you want to make sure when you want to communicate data insight, you make sure that you are communicating the relevant ones, those relevant ones that are needed, that will help the stakeholders or the audiences make informed decision. And another thing is like using your visuals effectively. So we've talked about this, like you need to make sure that those visuals that you're using are those ones that are appropriate, they are not too much colors, and you are lighting where you want your audience to focus on. Another thing again is you want to know your audience. So we'll talk about some of these things in details. Now there are some cases whereby those people that you want to communicate those insights to could be they are not technical person. I could remember like an interview I did recent time like that. They came to me, okay, they were like, okay, Ibrahim, come and present some of the projects you've worked on. So luckily for me, I was able to like know that all these people that I want to present to, right, they are people that have much more expertise in the data space. So it's not like I'm presenting my idea to like let me say a recruiting manager that it does not have much in-depth knowledge about what data is all about. So that with that that I've known that okay, all these people that I want to present this project to, they are people that are technical. Now I can start using some of the jargon that I know that they can relate to. So that is like first thing is like when you want to communicate all these data insights, you need to like know your audience. So with that, you'll be able to like know, okay, what are the kind of insights I need to tell all these people? Which one should I include? Which one should I not include? Another thing is like you want to keep it simple. This is very, very common. So you make sure that all these things that when you are communicating the insights, you are not using like technical jargon. Even if all these people that are talking to are technical people, try to make it as simple as possible. Always look at it as like you are explaining to like people that are like 5 year old to be able to like the goal is to understand what you are trying to pass across, not like when you're not starting saying some languages that people that you are talking to are now like checking dictionary to know what you are passing across. So we have to make your insight as simple as possible and as well show the impact of the analysis. Okay, now let's say for the why customers are churning. So now from that you can also okay, from this analysis, we are able to like determine the root cause that caused why customers are churning. So that means like that you are showing the impact of your analysis. And the last part is like provide a call to action. So for after you've said some insight, you should always provide a call to action to let the audience know, okay, from this insight, if all these there's now like I said before for the customer churn, like we said that could be maybe the reason why customers is like due to some. Now, if you are saying like a provides action that okay, if the company can rectify all this problem, so customer churn will reduce by 5 to 6%. So that's like a call to action. With that, when the stakeholders, people, or the main bodies hear all this kind of thing, they feel like, oh, we need to make sure we put this thing so as set in place. Now let's come into like tips for including the relevant insight. So um the first thing is like I've said earlier, this is very paramount. You need to understand the business problem. Without understanding the business problem, you cannot know what you want to talk about. You cannot know the relevant insight you want to talk about. Another thing is you should always ask questions. Nobody's an island of knowledge. Now let's say now you are working in a team whereby the data set you got was from the same team. You as a data analyst, one of the traits of a data analyst is asking questions. So asking questions will direct you to know, okay, why is this? Why is this? But if you don't ask questions, you will not be able to like know those relevant insights to pull off. So that is like some of the key things you need to put in place. So when you want to include the relevant issue, so asking questions will help you direct how, okay, now maybe you saw some cases, stuff like that. But when you've asked questions, you'll be able to like know, okay, this is the reason why this is this and this is this. And as well, you should always include key performance indicators. Now let's see now, because this is a relevant insight. Now let's say you are talking about customer churn, right? So one of the key performance indicators is like saying, okay, the percentage of customers that have churned is a performance indicator. It's like a key performance indicator because with that, the stakeholders can see that wow, about 50% of our customers have churned. So with that, they will know, okay, what is the appropriate measure to put in place. And then another thing is like you should include insights that support the main insight. So now let's say you are working on that customer churn and you've noticed that the services that caused it is like the reason why customer were churning was due to operational faults, right? So some of these supporting insights could be that, oh, you saw in the analysis that like people from what's it called, from a particular region churned more. So that would be like a supporting insight to direct to the climax insight, the key insight. So you make sure that during your analysis, you make sure also that you organize those insights, you tailor your insight according in a coherent manner, a manner that is like a chronological manner, so that you won't be like you've talked about this firstly, then you're not going to back, you're coming back and forth. So you make sure that your insights, you move from supporting down to the main insight. Now, for instance, you said, okay, your supporting insight could be that we saw in this analysis that okay, most people from let me say South Florida were churning most, right? Then the supporting insights, the main insights, you later found out that people in those what's it called, in those South Florida were having issues of operational fault. So that's the main insight. You started from like the supporting insight from the main insight. So that's how you have to move. You have to move from like the lowest insight down to the highest insight. Now, for the last one, like I said, we said one of the keys of communicating relevant insight is knowing your audience. So, like I've said about this before, like I'm just bringing it again. So when you're communicating insights, you need to like know those your audience. You need to know are all these people technical or non-technical. With that, you'll be able to like know what you want to talk about. Now, let's say now, for instance, you are talking to a non-technical person. So you want to focus more on the result rather than methodology. So, the sales teams are not concerned of not telling them that I make use of smart methods to fill in the missing value. No, 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 they are not interested in that, but they are interested in results. So you should focus more on results when you are talking to non-technical person rather than technical person might want to access your okay and know okay what type of model do you use to build this this prediction. But now that's when you can also okay I used something like random forest, card boost, stuff, other kind of model, you make use of a floating classifier. But when you are talking to sales team, you want to focus more on results. They don't want to care about the methodology. Now let's say now for instance, now this is an example. Let's say now in the analysis you saw that there was a strong positive correlation between the total sale and revenue. So now maybe the technical people might be interested in what's the proportion, what's the correlation value. So that's when they might be interested in knowing maybe is it close to 90, is it close to 80? But like for non-technical people, we can just say it as like, okay, from the analysis you saw that like as the total sales were increasing over months, so there's like the company revenues were also increasing. So that's it. Some of the things like you need to know when you are communicating insights, you need to know your audience. So that's when you know what you want to actually talk about. So in conclusion to what we've talked about, so we said when you want to communicate data insight is actually built upon three things. The first one being the data itself, um, the next one being the visuals, and the third one being the narrative. So for you, like we said earlier before, if you want to communicate data insight effectively, firstly, you need to understand and comprehend, define and comprehend your problem statement. So because due to that, you'll be able to like have direction into where you are going. If you don't understand the problem statement, you won't be able to like communicate your data insight effectively. Next one is you need to make sure you are using the correct visuals. You are avoiding things like colors or elements that will make um, your your visuals disorganized, that will not make your audience concentrate on what you want to pass across to them. And as well, you need to like communicate your ideas using simple languages. Don't use like things that the audience will not start checking dictionary to try and understand what you're trying to pass across. And as well, when you are communicating data insight, you need to make sure that you are including the relevant insight, inside that has significant on the analysis. Don't just think of you want to like feed your audience with a lot of information. You are now bringing out all the insights that you've gotten from like the analysis. You should always go on including the relevant insight. Now, let's say you are talking on why a customer journey. One thing they want to know is the root cause. What is causing this kind of um, why our customer journey? So the main insight is the root cause analysis, to know the root cause thing that is actually causing the user to to churn. So they are not interested in things like we have 60% of customers are lower than 60 years old. All those kind of insights are not relevant. Another thing is like the last part is you need to identify and understand your audience. So understanding your audience will help you, tailor your narrative to help you know, okay, what are the things you need to tell your audience. If your audience are non-technical person, that's when you will know, okay, you want to focus more on you want to focus more on the result rather than the technology. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Yeah.
Thank you very much for I mean,
Thank
some of
you.
your so thank you very much. It's been a very wonderful. If it's, I was, you are worried that it might be done in 20 minutes, but you see, it's already 40 minutes. So you see, it's a lot actually, a lot of value you have. So I want to ask from the audience if any questions before I read out the ones I've said. Anybody has a question, you can type, you can signify, and I will promote you, and I will promote you as a presenter. Anybody? Any questions? So if there are two times, oh, I see a hand up. Yes, sir. Please. Ask your question. Francis, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello?
Okay, yes, we hear you.
Okay, sorry, there's a lot of background noise, so please, can we mute?
I think it's at our presenters.
Oh, oh, okay, okay.
All right, so we are hearing your question.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Maybe not a question per se, but more like also just to add a bit to what he has presented, especially when you are presenting to non-technical people, right? Because most time as data analyst, you are not doing the report for yourself, isn't it? It's for someone else. And most time it may be management. So of everything that you are presenting, at least there are 2 or 3 things management want to hear. Because no matter how detailed your analysis, all they are interested in hearing is how does this increase our revenues, or how does it increase our cost or decrease our cost, isn't it? So which means either it's increasing revenue or what, minimizing cost, ultimately maximizing your what, profit. Okay. So I think the other thing again that is also important is that in those we are communicating those your insights. This is what management want to hear. But when it's to more of technical people, right? Now the question now is that what medium do we now use to present? So for some, you see where they present using your Power BI or Tableau. So that's basic to management. But for technical people, how do you present things like maybe you have done a machine learning project, right? So how do you also present? Do you present them using your maybe like your Jupyter notebook, or is there another way you can also present to more technical people? I think that's just the question I will ask for the technical side.
Thank you. So Ibrahim?
Yeah. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, now, yes.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of like presenting, um in terms of like communicating insights, actually there are 2 ways people can go about it. The first one is like you can communicate an insight, let's say a result from stuff using written reports, right? And then the other one is like through the oral presentation. So I believe, let's say now you are communicating to technical audience, right? They are usually more interested in the methodology, like I said, right? So for you to have like that detail, um, you know, findings and information about how you go about this, so it usually fits into going into a technical report that they will maybe glance through and they'll see. But firstly, you present to them, you present to them using the oral presentation, and then things like methodology usually fall in the area of like questions. Like technical people might ask you, okay, what is like the methodology? What stuff do you use to generate this kind of thing? But like spelling out the methodology, all things like the full detail things you want to communicate to like technical people is always inside in the form of a technical report. Then so but like let's say now you are now presenting, you present like the normal way you are presenting to like non-technical people. But technical people will ask you questions like, okay, what model do you use? Was it Raspberry Forest? What's my method or approach they use to fill the missing values. So that's like for that. So in summary, what I said is like if you want to tell about the methodology stuff, all those ones usually fall inside a technical report, a written report that the maybe your data science ed team will read and then understand and know what you're actually doing. So I hope been able to like answer.
I like that angle because it's very interesting. The truth also is there will be those people who what they care about is not even first of all the report itself. There are all those things on the back end, and as you have said, in the end, you can't answer those people with those reports today. You need to give them those details on the back end separately. So nice one. Thank you for that. I'm going to read someone's question before I read the ones I compiled. So Bukayat is asking that how do we go about this audience? Yes, an audience that is composed of technical and non-technical persons. I think there's an overlap with what you just said, but I don't know if there are other things you want to say to address our question. Did you see it? You can also see the questions in the
Okay,
chat.
yes.
Said,
I've seen the question.
okay.
So for that, if you have mixed type of personnel in a meeting, so firstly is like the Francis came in earlier. I said like the non-technical people will focus on like the results, like what are we generating? Is it generating more increase in our sales? Is it reducing our cost? So firstly, I think the approach to that is you present normally the way you present to people that are non-technical. Like you are telling out the result of the insight. So I believe all these people that are not technical people, they will ask questions and tell you, okay, what is the methodology you use to generate this thing? Okay, for the missing values, how do you go about it? So I think that's like um a way that can solve that kind of scenario for that. Because like normally once you've presented to the audience, right, they will be interested in asking questions. So and then one thing again is like, let's say if you see that like they are mixed, you can always include some like footnotes at the end of like maybe some notes in the visualization. Okay, let's say now for instance, you can say something like, okay, let me say for instance you are presenting about um like a model prediction and all that, or let's say now for instance you're like you're focused on a customer segmentation, for instance. So it could be like for the non-technical people, right? You can tell them, oh, the clustering algorithm that we used tell us like um, that the numbers of optimal clusters or the numbers of groups that can be generated is about 4. So you can now maybe say something like, okay, the type of clustering algorithm that we used was k-means or a DB scan. So I think it will actually boil down in technical people asking questions along the after you've presented. I don't know if I'm able to like answer like that.
Okay, so thank you. I'm going to read through the other questions I have compiled while your session was going on. So, one is should should I start with design first and do like a wireframe of what the report will look like when I'm doing reports and dashboards, or I should do the data modeling first? So there's always this uh, opinion people have that, oh, do the data modeling first. I'm now asking, what do you think? Should I do the design and wireframe first before burying myself in the data modeling?
So I think like before you start generating all these insights, you need to make sure everything is in place, like your data modeling, your if you've not started connecting and then linking all these different kind of data set together. So it will be hard for you to generate the insight if one data set is not speaking to another. So you want to make sure that like all these things has been set. You remove those inconsistencies. You go to your Power Query. You've remove the inconsistency in the data. You've connected the data together before you now start like making design. So you need to like make sure that your data model, everything has set before you start like generating insights. So let's now you've not connected your data together. There's no way you will be able to like speak to one data set and retrieve information from different kind of data sets.
So if I get your answer, the data modeling should come first, right?
Yes, before doing your data insight or getting your data.
So question number 2. For situations where I have data that for instance, now if I'm doing a report where I'm to visualize how sales are being across 6 regions, I might not have a problem, but now imagine I'm to do across 40 branches. So sometimes we find out that what will have worked for 4 branches, when we do 40 branches, the thing becomes unreadable. So how do we handle situations where, because of the size of the data we need to do a visualization over, we are having issues with the usual ways we will have done things? And there are some quick approach, and there are some ways one can handle situations like that.
Okay, so for instance, so if you see that like let's say the values from like the other categories like are minimal. Let's say now for instance, you have like you said here 20 categories, and you have cases whereby some categories the numbers of like let's say order are like maybe 2, 3, or like they are really minimal. So I think you could just focus on maybe the top 10 or maybe top 5 that like that is that will really capture like the audience. Like okay, you just say okay, out of the top location, we saw that like the top 5 location, we saw that this is this and that. So you should always go to this the case of like focusing on top stuff. That's like for instance on Power BI, you have cases where you can limit or categories to like top 10 based on their values, top n numbers based on their values.
Thank you. I just when you said it, I remember there was a work I even see my colleague in that work when he customized here, and what you said exactly is how they went about handling when we have many categories. We're always picking top this, top that. Yes, to that one. The other question I have is I think you answered this, or maybe if you want to say give a long answer to what you said while you were presenting, and it's about how what's the rule of thumb for choosing a chart that will go with a particular data. So how do I know when to use a pie chart, when to use a bar chart, when to use a map, when to use all the many different types of charts that are now at our disposal? Is there a way to quickly, easily know which will be appropriate for each situation?
Okay, okay. So now, for instance, pie chart and donut chart, they are used for cases where you want to display information that is based on path to goal. Now, like I said before in that my other presentation, I was showing scenario of donut chart and bar chart. So now, like the rule of thumb is like let's say the numbers of of categories that you want to show on, let me say, a donut chart is getting more than 3, it will look kind of clumsy, like the visualization will be kind of hard to read. So that's for like that. So now let's say now, for instance, you are showing counts across different kind of categories. So a bar chart, this is like, let's say now you are working with categories, right? One of the type of visualization that is ideal is like we are making use of donut chart, pie chart, bar chart. So because them can help you quantify a particular value across like across a category. So now let's say now for instance you're now working with a case whereby you want to measure change of value across the time. You should always know that like a line chart would be the optimal kind of case to build that kind of will be the optimal visualization for that kind of scenario. So that is like that. So for like let's say you are working with location. Let's say you are working with location. So you should know like a map visualization in Power BI will be optimal. So that is for like that. So like let's say now for instance, what type of visualization again like so that's like that. Let's say you are working with categories, you should know I want to check the value of like the values of across different kind of categories. You should know like things like bar charts are working are kind of optimal for that. Let's say now you want to check like the distribution of a particular column. So we have things like box plots, histogram that are kind of optimal for those kind of scenarios. So let's say now you want to check the change of things over time. So a line chart is kind of like the optimal visualization for that. Hope I've been able to like.
Yes, sir. So question number 5. What is your take on what do you think about situations where maybe as a consultant or as someone external, it could even be internal, I'm doing a report for a business, and then I've done the report, do narratives, do comments, try to explain what has happened. That maybe I've seen cases where people will write that branch, Lagos branch is the best performing branch. They introduced a new product. So they do very detailed narrative to make it easy for people to see without having to try to create the insights by themselves to the right time. So my question is, for the Lagos and that place actually be the best. So maybe next week it might be another place. So all the things in that narrative can become wrong by next week.
Yes.
What do you advise? Will that person now need to add it to his own workload that every time the values change, you should go and change narratives, or they should find a I don't know if they can ever be used, but they should find a way to automatically generate it.
Generate and add it to it. So for that,
Those situations, or should they just ditch narratives and let the users see it from there by themselves, like get back to
so
that?
I didn't kind of get. Can you come back again and for
Okay,
that
yeah.
last part?
Okay, I was just saying that, or should they just forget about narratives? So that's the thing I was saying.
Like adding comment to the
Yeah.
visualization itself.
No.
So
Yeah, some add it to the visualization, some create a text box right beside, maybe underneath. They write like
okay.
paragraphs to explain what's happening.
Okay, I think for that is like my own hot take will be on. I feel like the essence of you telling story, just don't just leave everything to say the audience will understand themselves. Like you are just putting everything and you're not talking about it. The essence of data storytelling is to make sure this kind of thing is kind of interactive. And then my own take would be like adding text to visualization to make like that kind of visualization a lot of kind of bulky. So I would say since there's not like automated process on let me say like let's say now Power BI that could actually pick that text and add it to the text box. I feel like there's no need for like you writing a text at because like there could be some cases whereby the metric could change. So if that has changed like that, you now say you want to like start going back and then replacing. So I feel like there's no need for adding a text to that kind of scenario.
So I think I'll combine the last two questions and still ask people if they have questions. So the last two questions, question 8 and question 9, I will combine them. So it is when one is building reports, how do you balance what tool you should use? Should you use Excel? Should you use Power BI? Should you use Python? Should you use Tableau? Should you use Click? Should you use like all the possible tools that exist? Okay, and then like how do you choose which tool to use? Balance that against also the functionality that the report should have, and then again balance against design and also the future. Like if the business wants to be able to use let the report capture more things than what is happening at the beginning of the reporting. So how do we balance all of the tool to use, functionality, outcome with scalability, the report working into the future? What are your advice?
Okay, for that, like for the answer, like there's a kind of scenario then that like um I wanted to like work on a particular project. This is just a personal project, not like working for a company. So upon seeing like the data set, right? So I felt like we had the tools that I wanted to use. I was already deliberating before even seeing the data set. I was deliberating on should I make use of Python or maybe Power BI, or I think another thing again they give us like three kind of tools that we can use. We can make use of SQL as well. So upon just seeing the data set like that, my mind just went straight to like I think bro the accurate like the kind of tool that will work actually for this kind of problem will be Power BI. Because like I was seeing that like start saying I want to start writing code from scratch to like maybe transpose the data set, stuff like that could be hard. But when I see that like with no code tools such as like Power BI, I could just easily just click on like the transpose button and like kind of a menu on the Power Query and all that, it will work. So knowing actually what type of tool to use for a particular scenario will be on what you're actually working on. You know, there could be some cases whereby what you are dealing is like building all this kind of model, you know, Power BI, Excel, or other kind of business intelligence tool might not be really working for that. But if you see that like okay, you are focusing on like what you want to do is you want to like have an automate process whereby as the data keep like what's it called? Keep like as the data keep adding, you want to make sure like the information is updating. So that's when you think, okay, I think maybe all this kind of tools such as Power BI, Tableau might be really optimal for this kind of scenario. But because like let's now Python like this now, except I don't know about that. I've not done it before. I don't know maybe Power BI. There are some cases whereby Power BI as you keep adding like I don't know because like all these libraries even in Power BI that I used to like build all these kind of visualizations, most of them are static. The only one I know that is kind of interactive is Plotly. And I really think like once like you're adding a lot of data, it will be kind of the workload will be much on Python to like start refreshing and all that. But all these kind of tools, all these kind of local tools such as Python, Power BI, Tableau, I think should be because like all these ones can collect as the data is increasing, they can since it is automated, it's like Power BI has options for like different kind of data sets, connecting different kind of data source, and you can automate the process as well, which is like the work of all these data engineers. So I feel like if you are thinking of the data will be increasing, right? And then you want to start like generating reports instantly as the data is adding up. So you should leverage all these kind of low code tools stuff like that. But if you are maybe focusing more on like some small little bit of analysis or you want to build like models, so you should think of like things like Python, all those kind of things. So it depends on what you want to do actually.
Thank you. I think we have come to the end today, and thank you for the generous knowledge here. And I see a lot of people that are joined us today that I need to specially also call their names. I see this. He's not a Nigerian, so you might not understand when I say Chairman Crispo, but if he was a Nigerian, that's the right way to hail him. So I see Oga Crispo. Thanks for joining. I see a few other people, and I see Rukayat Regular. I see Mr. Joseph. I want to just say to everyone that joined, those who have left before the end, those who have stayed today, thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Also look in the chat box, you will see, let me repost the LinkedIn account of our special guest so that you can connect with him, you can learn more from him, and you can get to also enrich your network by adding others to your own network too. Again, Ibrahim, thank you very, very much for this audience.
Okay.
Always privileged when you come to speak to us, and
Thank you so much for having me as well.
thank you. Maybe just to say, I know time is fast spent, but I told you that in case some people did not watch your first session, what would be your advice for someone starting now in this whole data space? How can they go from zero to becoming confident data analysts? What do you advise?
So concerning that, my advice will just be me first. My advice will be about just start. See, one thing about like all this data analytics, data science is you just start. You don't have this kind of imposter syndrome that you don't know statistics, you don't know maybe all these mathematics because you go online and then people start telling you need to like know mathematics, you need to know stuff like calculus. Because when I wanted to like start data analyst science, then I was focused more on data science. I was like, I was seeing things like people was telling me, or you see blogs online, they tell you you need to learn linear algebra, you need to learn calculus. Then so I started learning all this kind of thing. But I was saying I was having a headache. And one thing again is like I did kind of see that like even the all these linear algebra, all these complex things that I've learned, not like I've been kind of really applying it. And then one thing about data scientists or data analytics is it's not compulsory you know how things work in depth. Trust me, you cannot know it. When then I used to write articles then about like um talking about how a particular model works. I remember then I wrote about like logistic regression, just like a short summary of how logistic regression works. So when I was trying for like random forest, then I was like learning to know what I want to tell about. Like as I was saying, I was going deep. I was still going deep and I was having a dig. So from then I learned a lesson then that it's not I don't need to like know the methodology. So far it works, it works. So if you want to get started into data analytics or data science, I'd advise you just get started. So we have tools like and one thing I used to tell people is you should always learn tools that lap across this kind of field because we have like one of the kind of big um, roles in data space are like data analysts, data scientists, data engineer. So one thing is like one of those tools is we want to make sure that like SQL like this now, SQL are used across all this kind of field. So you want to target all those tools that even if you want to like divert you know okay because since you have all these kind of relevant skills before you can easily just go across to and move into another kind of skill. So if you want to get started into data analyst, like there are tons of courses in which UrBizEdge as well offers. The pathway is when you start learning, there are some cases whereby you feel down. Even trust me, sometimes I feel down. Like you just have to pick up yourself again and continue learning. Because like it's kind of like a field that has been long, but like the boom recently just came that people started seeing the usefulness of data. So if you want to get started in data, anything in data, I advise you get started. So don't care about maybe there are things like statistics. You should always stuff like descriptive statistics like average, median, mode. Let me say what is the count will help you and you go a long way. Talk about you know the in-depth or you know things like maneuver. There are some cases whereby all those ones will be useful. Just simple things like that in statistics will help you. So that is for that. So like some of the key things you need to just focus is we have tools in which you can use. We have different kind of tools. We have business intelligence tools like Power BI, Excel, and we have other kind of tools. We have Tableau. So just there are tons of resources online that will help you. We have UrBizEdge as well. Have a lot of courses that can help you. So that's for that.
You very, very much. And in fact, want to reinforce, emphasize three key things I took from your answer. It's just start. Don't keep thinking that you need to wait until when you feel you are ready or you think you're confident. That it is that starting and doing that will get you that confidence and getting to really know it. And number two is let's learn prioritize tools and skills that can, you know, translate across multiple spaces. So like SQL and any tool that is not just used by one narrow niche of the industry. I really, really relate with that. And the third one is don't go and kill yourself with trying to first of all get a master's in statistics before you can figure out how data scientist or data analyst that we should focus more on the application because the same way we use a lot of things in our life. You drive a car, you're an expert car driver, but you cannot repair anything inside. You might not even know all the engineering that
Exactly.
goes behind, but you understand how to apply it correctly and all. So I also relate with that. So thank you again very much for this. We are going to end the session here, and I want to say thank you to everyone. And as they have said, if you're interested in any of our training, I'll put the link. You can always follow the link to reach out to us. But at this juncture, we are going to wrap up the session. And Francis is also uh, commenting on what you said, and it's also saying always start. You don't want to waste time or be thinking that there's whatever little you do consistently will add up. So thank you, Dr. Francis.
Okay,
Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Ibrahim,
thank
for
you
the
so
very
much, everyone.
wonderful session.
Thanks for having me.
Bye to everyone. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.